Alright, so in this tutorial we're going to do is add a little bit more of a combative thing, something for us to avoid, obstacles if you will, in the form of enemies. So should be relatively easy. So first I just need to make the actual enemy. So I'm going to create an empty, and we'll just call it enemy, which is fine. Alright, good. So we'll call that enemy. That'll be our one thing. And I'm just going to zero out all of this and make sure I'm in the scene view so I can see it. And let's hit F to frame. Okay, so it's right at origin, so it's right where the camera icon is. So that's pretty good. I'm also going to create some 2D object, and let's go ahead and do a sprite. I'm just going to call it enemy. Oops, make sure I do caps. Enemy graphic, which we will change at some point with something. I'm going to click on that, and let's just do this guy. And I'm just going to go ahead and click on this and give him like a red color. Alright, and let's scale it up. So I'll hit R for scale, and I'm just going to scale it up a little bit. I got to back this thing up so I can see. So we'll say like that. Looks pretty good. I'm going to take it and I'm going to drop it. Click and drag it underneath enemy, and then I'm going to zero out its transform so it's right on top of it. There we go. I'm going to zoom in so I don't see the camera anymore. And I want to be able to tell which direction it's going, so I'm going to create just something we're going to get rid of. But we'll do another 2D object, another sprite, and I'm just going to call this like enemy nose graphic. And we'll click on this, and it'll be a knob. And I'm just going to go ahead and parent that to the enemy graphic. Zero out, zero out, zero out. And I am just going to hit W for the move tool, move her forward. Good. Okay. Just so we have something that we can see, you know, what it is basically. Alright, good. So there's our enemy. It's pretty fantastic. So I'm going to take the enemy and actually move it down here so I can see it. And I need to make a couple things to make this work, right? So I'm going to add a component, and we're going to add a box collider 2D. Alright, we're going to add another component, and I'm going to add a rigid body 2D. So we're going to need these two things, okay? So with the box collider 2D, I'm just going to go ahead and make that trigger. I'm going to adjust the size of it, and what I want to do is this. I want you to make it small and to the front like this. So basically it reads in front. The idea here is that this is going to do two things. It's going to read when to turn, and it's also going to read when it hits the person or the player. So if the player's right here, this will hit the player first. But if the player's behind it, obviously he wouldn't be able to attack. Also, I need it underneath so that it's available, so that when the player comes down, I don't hit this, but I'll hit the player, or I'll hit the enemy, and not this initially, okay? Because this will be to kill the player and also be to turn around. So I need to be kind of thin and in that direction. All right, that looks pretty good. Now the other thing we're going to have to do is this. We have this rigid body 2D, which is basically we built it just so we can use it to push it back and forth. But I don't want it to do certain things. So what I don't want it to do is I don't want it to rotate, because I don't want to randomly have it like rotate around. The other thing I don't want is I'm actually going to freeze the position Y, which means it's only going to be allowed to move left and right. It's going to keep it from just falling down. Because if you remember, I took this and I made this a trigger. So basically, we're just going to go ahead and freeze the position Y, and that should be pretty good. Okay, so now what we're going to do is create a new script. So I'm in my scripts folder. I'm going to right click, create C# script, and we'll call it enemy controller script. Boom. Looking fantabulous. Gonna open that up, and then went off to the side here, and I'll probably get a bunch of things that it wants me to update. So let's see. No thank you, so on and so forth. Okay, so let's go ahead and get rid of some stuff and add some stuff. So I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm just going to add a couple of variables. So one variable I need is to control the speed. So public, I'm going to make it public so that I can adjust it. So we'll do a public float, and we'll call it enemy speed. So this will be my variable that will hold the speed and the direction that it goes. I'm also going to need another variable that controls which direction. So obviously it's going to be able to go to the right, or it's going to be able to go to the left. So when it goes to the right, it's going to be positive, so it'll be a 1. And when I want it to go negative, it'll be a -1 when it goes to the left. Okay, so 1, -1, so back and forth. So we're just going to make another variable to hold that. So it's going to be an int because it's going to be solid numbers. So let's call it enemy direction. Okay, and then I need a couple other variables. So I'm going to need one for to hold the initial to hold the scale of the player, because I'm just going to take it and flip it. Just makes it a little bit easier. So we're going to make something to hold that. So it's going to be a vector 2 because we're doing x and y, because we're not doing x, y, z. It's just a 2D game. So that was called that enemy scale. And then we'll make another variable which will hold the rigid body. So rigid body 2D, and we'll just call that enemy RB 2D. Okay, so the idea is that that will hold the rigid body, which is what we're going to use to actually move the character. Okay, so the scale, what I need to do is I want to store the initial scale, because if you look at it, which I already did here, if you look at my enemy here, well, I didn't do it here, but the graphic has it. But see how like I already scaled it? This way it'll store whatever the scale is of what I have, and then I can take that and just reverse it to flip it. Okay, so I want to set up an initial scale. I want to find what the initial scale of the enemy is, and then I can just use that and transfer it. So I'm going to do enemy scale equals transform dot local scale. Okay, so basically we're gonna store the scale into enemy scale. All right, and then we're also going to do enemy RB2D, so the rigid body, and I'm going to just go ahead and do get component. I'm going to store the component, and the component I'm looking for is rigid body 2D. All right, like that. So just remember, get component, it's a function, and it's looking for rigid body and that. Okay, so boom. Okay, so we stored both those things into these two variables that we made, and so we're good to start working. All right, now what I'm going to do is this. So normally, or what we have been doing is I've been putting things right into the update, but it's not a good idea to just write a bunch of code and update. It'd be better to have things that update runs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another variable, or another function, and I'm going to call it void. I'm just going to call it move. And so basically what is, oops, not like that. And what that's going to do is that's going to do the actual moving of the enemy. Okay, so so in update, I'm going to have it, so if you remember, update runs every visible frame, every rendered frame. We're just going to literally say move. So basically, in update, it's going to run this function every frame. So instead of putting all the code I'm going to put into this, which is actually just going to be one line of code, but instead of putting that one line of code in there, if this was much more complicated, I could put a whole bunch of stuff in here. But it's just a good idea to get kind of in the habit of doing that, even though we haven't been doing that thus far. But, you know, trying to learn new things. So we're going to do this the same way we've already done for the player. So we're going to do enemy RB2D and then dot velocity. So to the velocity, I'm going to input a new vector 2. All right, vector 2, and the vector 2 is going to be the enemy speed for x. It needs two values. It needs an x and a y. So enemy speed, because that was that variable I'm going to put in later, times an enemy direction. So, okay, times enemy direction, enemy direction. Okay, so that, let's go ahead and put that in its own parentheses. Come on, there it goes. That will be in one parenthesis, so that will be my x. And then the y, I don't want to do anything to, right? Because I'm just trying to move it left to right. So it needs x and y. So that's just going to be transform dot position dot y. Okay, and then we just need to end it with a semicolon. Now, problem I have right here is that enemy speed, so I can put a number there. I could put, like, let's say 5, right? times enemy direction. So what is enemy direction? It's whatever is up here. Now you notice we made it private, so I'm going to be putting that into the inspector. So enemy directions actually has no value initially, so it's going to be a 0. Let's get rid of this. So basically, even if I put a number in for enemy speed, it's going to be nothing. So we need to put like just an initial value in here. If you remember, I want to be 1 or -1. So I'm just going to go ahead and just make it 1 to start with. Okay, so that will mean, so it's going to start in a positive direction. Okay. Good. So that's going to make it move, and that should work pretty good. So let's just test that. So I'm just going to Control S to save. Let's go here. And I don't know what the heck that is. And let's click on console. Come on, Bessie. There we go. Clear. Cool. Clear. All right. And I'm just going to back this thing up. Let's hit play and see if it moves. And it's not going to, because I didn't actually... I got to attach. So you can see I didn't put the script on there yet. I'm a big dummy. Okay. So enemy controller. There we go. So now it's in there, and let's put 5 for the speed to start with, and hit play. And let's see. Should just go to the right, hopefully. Let's see. Yay, there it goes. On off to the woods. Okay. So that works pretty good. But what I need to do is I need to do 2 things, right? I need it to basically go to the edge, and then turn around, and then go to this edge, and then turn around and go to this edge. So I need to go back and forth, okay? So I need to put that in. Now we could do this a lot of different ways. I'm going to try and do it in the most simplest way possible, using things we already kind of know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 2 new objects, create empty, and we'll just call this enemy block 01. Actually, let's call it enemy block. Let's call it enemy block left. Okay, we're going to add a component, box collider 2D, and let's 0 this out so that it starts up there, just so I can see where it is. Okay, and we'll just put it like here, and we're going to make is trigger. All right, good. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do, let's put them over here, and then once this one's set up, we'll do it for the other one. So what I'm going to do is I want it that when it goes up and hits this, it's going to turn around and go the other direction. Now the only way to really kind of do that, or the easiest way, the way we've been doing things, is I need to add a tag to this that it can test, so that when it goes into this, it'll go, oh, what's the tag of the thing I hit? But right now it's untagged, so I need to put in a tag here. So let's go ahead and add a tag, and we'll just call it enemy block. Call it enemy block. Okay, and so basically what I'm going to do is click back on this. It didn't actually add it. I'm going to go to enemy block. And now if it's on enemy block, when I go up against it, it'll go, oh, enemy block, and then flip and turn around. Okay, so, okay. So I'm going to go over here, and that works, that works. So now what I'm going to do is, if you remember, on my guy here, my enemy, I have a trigger set up, right? This box collider I set up as a trigger, which means I can use that on trigger enter 2D, which is what we're going to do now. So I'm going to go ahead and add another function onto this called void on trigger enter 2D, and it's going to test for a collider 2D, and we'll just call it COL, because that just seems to be what people call it. And what we're going to do is we're just going to test if the thing that we hit, collider dot tag, if the tag of the thing we hit is equal to enemy block, come on, block, then I want you to run what's in this block here. So basically what I want you to do is I want you to turn in the opposite direction, right? So if you remember, enemy direction is set to 1. So what I want to do is I want to take this 1 and make it a -1. But if it was -1, I want to make it a +1. So how do we do that through math? We take whatever enemy direction is, and we just multiply it times -1. So basically what that means is that if enemy direction is 1 times -1, we'll make it -1. But if enemy direction was -1 times -1, makes it +1. So that's basically what we're going to do. So we're just going to go ahead and change. This variable doesn't actually do anything yet. We're going to use it on something, but we're just going to make it so that it changes the variable to the opposite of what it currently is. So we're going to do enemy direction, and here's a shortcut. Instead of doing enemy direction equals enemy direction times -1, what we can do is enemy direction times equals -1, which is the same thing. It's just a shortcut for it, okay? So then what we're going to do is actually apply that. So we'll do transform dot local scale. Okay. Now this will do another thing for us too. This enemy direct. Well, let's do this first, and I'll come back around to that. So local scale. So I need to flip it, right? So local scale, new vector 2, and it's going to be enemy. Oops. Scale. Enemy scale dot x times enemy direction. That will be my x scale, and then it'll just be enemy scale dot y. Okay, boom. Okay, so what that's going to do is basically I'm going to take its scale and I'm going to make it enemy scale times the enemy direction. So if it's positive x for whatever it was, it'll make it negative x, because remember here, or it'll make it positive again. So it'll do one or the other. So it should flip it back and forth more or less. Okay. So that should be good. And then I'm just leaving enemy scale y the same. So this enemy direction is also going to help us, because up here, this will make it move in a positive or negative direction. All right, so we'll just save that, and we'll go back here, and I have enemy block left. Oops, gotta wait for the thing to catch up. There we go. So let's hit play, and hopefully it hits it and comes back around. And play, boom, see, there it goes. Muy bueno. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm just going to duplicate it, Control D or Command D, and I'll call this enemy block right. Okay. And we'll leave that one there, because I don't know why I put that there to begin with. Okay, so we got a left and a right. All right, so now let's hit play. And it should bounce back and forth. Boom, boom. Yay, super great. Okay, so that's working pretty good. So now everything's going back and forth, but what you'll notice is that he's run rain on my dude, and he doesn't seem to care. So I need to make him kill my guy. So to do that, it's going to be relatively easy. So we already kind of set up this on trigger enter. It's going to do another one, but this time we're going to say if the thing we hit, we test the tag, oops, not tag, and we're going to test it against player, right? Because remember, my player has the tag player on it. So what we're going to do, if that's the case, is we're going to do col dot game object, all right, dot get. So basically we're going to say, okay, the collider, because remember it stores the collider into that, we want the game object, and then in that game object we want to grab the component, and the component I'm going to look for is player stats script. Okay, like this. Now the reason why we have a player stat script is that if you remember, player stat script is player stat script is the one that holds our lives information, right? So basically that's going to be the thing that's going to say, oh, you know, life or death and score and all that other stuff. But right now we just have it set up for lives. So we're already on it. So player stat script, but I want to run that lives function. And not only do I want to run that lives function, is I need to send it. If I want to pick up lives, it's a positive one, but if I want to take away lives, it's a negative one. In this case, I actually want to take away a life. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do dot lives, and then in that, I'm going to send it a -1. So basically, remove a life. So let's see if that works. Let's go back here and let's hit, well, we gotta wait, and then we'll hit play once it's hopefully going. Come on, there it goes. Oh, I might have hit too many times. Come on. There we go. So see, 2, 1, 0. I avoided it. Oh, he's, you know, right? So he's murdering me. Pretty good. Okay. He's a terrible human being. Okay. Good. So that's working pretty good. So now what we need to do is, that's all fine and dandy, and if that's all I wanted to do, that'd be fine. But I'm going to do it kind of like Mario, where if he hits me, I die, but if I hit him, he dies. Easiest way to do that to set up right now is to just use that ground check. So I'm going to double click on ground check. And I'm just going to add, you see we already have this on trigger enter 2D for the ground, so that it tests whether we're touching the ground. I can test whether I'm touching also the player. So let's go ahead, or the enemy. So I'm going to go if col.tag is equal to enemy, then we're going to do this bit here. Now, if you remember, or you probably don't remember, but we don't have a tag for enemy, so I got to actually add that to the enemy here. So I'm going to take the enemy here. See, no tag, and there's none in there. So I'm going to go ahead and click on add tag, hit the little plus, and we'll call it enemy. Click back on enemy and actually apply the tag. There we go. Okay, so we now have it that if it's an enemy, what do we want to do? Now, if you want to keep track how many enemies you killed or what have you, you'd run all that code in there. For now, I'm just going to settle for killing it. So we're just going to do destroy, and we'll just do col, but we got to do col game object. So it actually destroys the game object itself, not just the collider of the object. Boom, Control S, go back here. Oops, wrong one. There we go. And give it a second, and hopefully, come on, you got it. There we go. So, alright, let's see if we can avoid him getting me. Got him, yay, and I didn't lose any lives, okay? So now we hit play, and I'll let him hit me once or twice. Okay. Oh, well, I landed on him from when I spawned. But you can see, so basically, if I land on him, he dies, and if he lands on me, I die. But you have to make sure that the collider on the bottom, the box, the ground check is on the bottom. That's big enough, and that this one's is low enough so he can hit this before he hits this. Because if he hits this first, your character will just die, and it won't really work. Okay, so these two are going to be competing with each other. But for the most part, that works. So now what we can do is this. We haven't done this up to this point. Do we only have 2 so far? We'll make a new folder, create folder, and we're going to call it prefabs, okay, because it's prefabulous. And what this is going to allow us to do, oh, so I have this enemy, but I also have these enemy blocks. It kind of makes sense for these all to be like one chunk. So I'm going to create empty, and we'll just call this like enemy patrolling. Okay, so we'll call it a patrolling enemy. All right, so let's zero all that out. 0, 0, 0. And what I want to do is I'm going to take, and actually, you know what? Let's do this. Let's take this and move this into the center-ish. Okay, I'm going to take this, okay, this, and this. I'm going to drop them all into there. So basically, the enemy and the 2 blocks, the block right and block left, underneath this enemy patrolling. Okay. So now, if I were to duplicate this, I'd have the whole apparatus every time, because I'm always going to need a left and a right, and then the enemy itself, okay? So now what I'm going to do is open up that prefabs, and what you can do is you can take this, and if I drag it into prefabs, it's going to make this little thing. You can see it says enemy patrolling.prefab. What that allows me to do is this, is that now I can take this guy, and you can see it changed it to this little cube thing, and I can make as many of these as I'd like. All right, and basically it's a pre-made asset that I can keep dropping in there. And what's cool is that if I select it here and if I open the prefab, if I want to change anything about this, like let's say I want the enemy now, or the enemy graphic here, or let's say change his nose. Let's say I want his nose to be a different color. I could go, ooh, I want it to be, you know, this color, right? Boom, and then I'll just exit out by clicking that, and now you're gonna see all of them are that color, because they're all sourcing from the same single one. And I could even take this guy and let's see, how do I get, okay, so you have them here. If you click on open on the prefab, you can open it that way too. So if you can't find it down here for some reason, you could just do it that way. But now I have multiple ones, and they all work exactly the same. So I can kind of go through and try to like, oh no, I got that guy and got another life. Oh, that guy got me. Alright. Ugh. Did I get him too? A little glitchy, but anyway. So, good. So you get kind of the thing, and it sort of works. And that's basically simple enemies setup.